Our scripture this morning comes from the book of Matthew, where Jesus is teaching. Be on your guard against false prophets who come to you disguised as sheep, but underneath are ravenous wolves. You will be able to tell them by their fruit. Can people pick grapes from thorns or figs from thistles? In the same way, a sound tree produces good fruit, and a rotten tree produces bad fruit. A sound tree cannot produce rotten fruit, and a rotten tree cannot produce good fruit. Any tree that does not produce good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. I repeat, you'll be able to tell them by their fruit. Ancient words from our tradition for our present-day understanding.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. Was anybody else a little disappointed in the Rapture Tuesday? Yeah. That's a good thing for like a Presbyterian pastor is, you know, your congregation is still going to be there. You know your pastor will still be here after the rapture, so it's not to rat anybody out, but somebody from our staff, when I came into work that day, had set up in her chair, which is the administrator's chair, but I'm not going to say who it was. But did anybody see the movie Left Behind? She had like the shoes were on the thing, the empty clothes. So A+, that's great. And I put that on my Facebook page, and somebody, one of my MAGA friends, sent me their disappointment that I was making fun of other people's religion. God knows MAGA people don't make fun of anybody, which is great. And what I said to them and what I would say to anybody is, tolerance is not about putting up with bad ideas. Tolerance is giving people their human rights. To be tolerant about free speech, at the same time you're repressing people's freedoms, is not tolerance. There is nothing tolerant about the MAGA movement. That's nothing new, I'm sure, to anybody here. But our passage today helps us understand the importance of condemning intolerance. Do not let yourself be led astray by false prophets. Now, if you're from a different tradition, that would be me, right? I'm often called a wolf in sheep's clothing. But let me ask this. Does a wolf believe in gun control? Does a wolf want health care for all people? Think about what that image means. And like Jesus is saying, just look at the fruit. Is it kind or is it cruel? Is it wise or is it deeply, deeply stupid? I'll let you judge. I'm just asking the questions. This part of the Sermon on the Mount is very interesting because Jesus has talked about not judging. He said all kinds of things that are really kind of impossible to pull off, like loving your enemies and this kind of thing. And this is sort of like the warning label. We've only got a few more passages to look at, and he's warning people that it's not as simple as it may have sounded before. To be a loving person, you have to have very strong boundaries. And you have to care enough about your neighbor to protect them. Even if that means protecting them from the church, protecting them from your nation. Christianity is countercultural by definition. And the fact that it has morphed into Christian nationalism is a cancerous movement. To pretend like Jesus loved America. I mean, I don't think he would have disliked us, but we weren't here. Guns weren't here. The American flag wasn't here. So when you try to make those things essential, or things Jesus didn't even talk about, people's gender associations, abortion, to take things that Jesus didn't even talk about and say those are the core of his teaching. If the word heresy means anything, that's it. If the word heresy makes any sense whatsoever, if it can be applied to anything, Christian nationalism is the best example, I think. In ancient Judaism, we sometimes forget Jesus was Jewish. So he had space lasers. That's why people... And Judaism had some sanity touchstones that Christianity could really use. One of them was called the Shema. The Shema says God is one, love God with all of your heart, mind, and all of your strength. Something like that. It gets different ways of being said. A lot of people think the essential part is God is one, and who knows what the focus was. But to me, that call to love with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your strength is key to religious sanity. If you have a love that opens up to truthfulness, compassion, courage, then you know you're on the right path. But what a false prophet does is shut you down with fear, with superstition, propaganda, and boundary ethics. It's us against the world. One of the, so they said, put that in a little box, keep it on your forehead, put it in your, don't ever forget this. And guess what Christianity did? We jettisoned it, we forgot it. Like the Sabbath, the sacred name, all of those things are things that most Christians have no idea what they mean. But those are the pillars of spiritual sanity. It has to be love. It has to be love that opens up to justice, but also to universality. So what I want to do, this is going to seem like a leap, is talk about the Wizard of Oz. Stay with me for a second. Because when you think about loving with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your strength, that's kind of the theme of the Wizard of Oz. The Scarecrow doesn't think that he has a brain. The Tin Man doesn't think he has a heart. The Lion doesn't think he has courage. So the Wizard of Oz is a great metaphor of the spiritual journey. A little girl is bored in her home in Kansas. The film starts off in black and white. Then she goes on this incredible journey that shifts to color. And then she realizes the treasure was always at home. But that's the life journey. That's spoiler alert, that's kind of what, if we're going to learn the lessons of life, that's kind of it. The sacred is in the ordinary. We can't control much of life. And at a time when it just seems like everything has gone insane, it's very important to realize that what's most important is inside of us. What's most important and what will keep us sane is to continue to love with all of our heart, all of our mind, and all of our strength. But to do that, we have to reject Christian nationalism. Right? You can't love with all of your mind if somebody's telling you what to think. You can't love with all your heart if somebody's telling you what relationships are proper and what aren't. You can't love with all of your strength if you're so afraid of God that you don't stand up for anything or anybody. The first person I want to pick out of the story of the Wizard of Oz, and I'm not getting any money for this from Warner Brothers or whoever, but there are sales on the way out of the... First one I want to look at is the cowardly lion, because he's well represented in the Trump White House. That false bravado, the warriors who never went to war, people so willing to send other people's children to go bleed and die, but who were protected when their time came. What does it mean? I mean, not only is Donald Trump destroying democracy in the United States, but he's destroying the Republican Party, gutting it. The party of small government now is sending federal troops into Democratic cities. Does that sound like small government? That's not conservative. It's not Republican. It's fascism. Jesus is saying it's okay to renounce that. It's okay to resist that. That's a false teaching. And when they do it in the name of Jesus, we have a responsibility to protect the people that they are coming after in Jesus' name and in our name. Think of the cowardice that goes after transgender people. Maybe the gentlest people on the face of the earth. And Donald Trump has been able to frighten people. Big, tough men are frightened of transgender people and of drag queens. Undocumented immigrants have a much lower rate of crime than American citizens. But you would never know it listening to the Donald Trump lies. And I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for somebody who has no idea of truth. And you just see him making stuff up. That here's this poor, pitiful, wounded soul that would rather lie than be a normal person, an average person, which is what we all are. Isn't it strange how much of Trump's policies lift up the Confederacy? Have you ever noticed where the Bible Belt, the borderline of the Bible Belt, for the most part, is the Confederacy? Why is Trump so concerned with naming bases after Confederate soldiers? What a direct assault on people whose history was different than white people, who are just as American as anybody else, but they have to go into the public square and see a Confederate soldier, a human trafficker, lifted up as a model. Would you name a base after Benedict Arnold? Would anybody name or ship the USS Benedict Arnold? He was a traitor. That's what the Confederacy was. These were people that were willing to kill their fellow citizens so they could human traffic. That is, if that's your heritage, that's your Southern heritage, you need to get out more. Because you're like a potato. All of your good stuff is underground. You need to blossom some. You get some branches and stuff, because you're a lot more important than that. What a prophet today would say, if you were to come in to speak to us, he would say that what Trump is trying to hide, and Trump, not just Trump alone, but recent presidents have tried to hide, is that America is no longer the empire that it was after World War II. We can act as tough as we want to, but we lost in Vietnam, we lost to the Taliban, and essentially we lost in Iraq. We are no longer the toughest person on the block. We are descending and China is growing. What a prophet would say is that is something that you have to stop lying about. Donald Trump is destroying the American empire. He's forcing other nations to go to China just to have dignity. Did you see the speech he gave this week? If you're from another country, would you cower? The MAGA movement is made up of people who cower. Which is tragic. It's tragic for them. The prophets came to get people to stop thinking Israel was going to be a world power again. But they came to give hope that there was something better on the horizon. There's something better than the United States kicking everybody around. We could be true to our principles instead and be a place where every human being finds life, liberty, and a right to the pursuit of happiness. But to do that, we have to give up the false hopes. We have to stop lying about our history and pretending like everything was good for everybody. MAGA people may not know it consciously, but in their heart they know it. That they're marginalizing much of America by telling a white Christian narrative. If the church doesn't stand up from the rooftops and shout, we miss our time in history, our time to be prophetic. So the first character I'm lifting up, and I kind of wandered off a little bit here, is the Cowardly Lion. Then the Tin Man. He's a robot that's been designed to work so hard that he's lost his own heart. Now forgive me, but I think that's a good metaphor for capitalism. Where workers are driven to despair. And the gig economy is a remnant of cannibalism, where people live with such worker insecurity that they're afraid to ask for their rights. And that's not an accident, that's on purpose. That's what capitalism does. People haven't liked to hear that for 30 years here, but it's kind of hard to deny right now, right? When you have a system based on property rights, on greed, it rewards greed, it punishes cooperation. The worst people in your culture are going to rise to the top. And you're going to have the tragic situation where the criminals are no longer robbing banks, but banks are robbing people. In the story of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy was unhappy with Kansas. Again, it was shown in black and white. When she gets here, this Technicolor world with all these incredible, fascinating people and whatever they were, she misses home. The America that we've made up, it will never be home. It's not real. Home is the people. Home is the land. And when you love flags and hate people, you don't have a home. You don't have a home. So we're not fighting anybody. We're giving the ultimate gift of their own heart by calling them to their home in nature, in humankind, in the web of life. In the story, I love this line where she goes, "No matter how dreary and gray our homes are, we people of flesh and blood would rather live here than in any other country, be it ever so beautiful. There's no place like home." And I don't think she means the United States there. But her life seemed so boring that she got caught up in this fantasy. The Wizard of Oz was a huckster. The President of the United States is a huckster. And I'm not talking about the person, I'm talking about the function. You don't have to let that lead you into despair. You don't have to cooperate with that. You can be the resistance. And there are times in history when resistance is the only prayer that matters. There's something sacred about you refusing to be subhuman in this horrifying new day. So to remember, there's no place like home. And as scary as it may seem, this is where happiness lies. You can live a life of happiness, of dignity, of peace. Just remember your humanity and live in your heart. Then the last character we're going to look at is the scarecrow, whose head was so stuffed with straw that he couldn't think. There's a lot of church people whose head is so filled with stuffing that they can't think, they can't ask questions. They look at Tylenol as a mortal threat to women. They care so much about women, all of a sudden. They can't say the name of the medicine. Robert Kennedy Jr. does not have a medical degree, but he's interfering in the lives of people he's never met and overriding people with expertise. The MAGA movement hates expertise, any kind of expertise. They want to be able to sit at the computer, spend 10 minutes, and decide where autism comes from. The world doesn't work like that. The word heresy is very interesting. I'm going to do a sermon on that someday. But the original meaning of the word heresy was not that you were out of the norm. The word heresy meant a hair splitter. It meant somebody who would reject other people for minor reasons. So somebody that gets tunnel vision for Jesus is a heretic. Somebody that thinks that Christianity has copyrighted love and goodness and mercy is a heretic. Because love blossoms into universality, or it's not really love. So love with all of your heart, all of your mind, and all of your strength. The Secretary of Education now is coming from the world of professional wrestling. There have been many times in history when the church did education, and the purpose was not to brainwash, but to liberate. And we're living in one of those times again. There's a saying, and then I'll wrap up. Thank you for your patience. Gahil Gibran, like when you do weddings, this is a poem that you often hear. But I think it's one the nation needs to hear. When people want to propagandize our children, Gibran says, your children are not your children. They're the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but never your thoughts. For they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life does not go backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. So if you're feeling a little bummed out about the rapture, Sorry you were left behind. It happens to me about once a year. However bad things seem, this is an opportunity where it makes every difference whether we love with all of our mind, whether we fact-checked our beliefs. And if we don't know, we say, I don't know. Did Jesus rise from the dead? I don't know. I wasn't there. And that we love with all of our heart, which is not to give up on anybody, including MAGA people, to see the humanity of every person, and then finally to love with all of our courage. If we can find the courage to stop lying about America and start telling the truth of our history, then we can learn from our history. And we can improve and we can do better. That's true love of America. Saying you have to close your eyes to love America is not love. And if we do that, if we come to love the people of this country and the land and honor the water, the air, the soil, we'll find ourselves realizing that we're already in the place that we've been looking for and that there's no place like home. I invite you now to your own reflection on these words.